2. Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. If you're watching that on the webcam, on YouTube, or WNSTV channel, Facebook Live, wherever we may be, I am surrounded in the glow of purple as the Tennessee Titans come in on Saturday night. Teresa Walker covers all things Tennessee sports, two-time Tennessee Sports Writer of the Year, also at the Associated Press, which lands on the WNST.net website through our partnership, covering the Titans, the Predators, the Grizzlies, all sorts of things. But it's Titans fever all of a sudden as Ryan Tannehill has sort of led the Titans to a place that, quite frankly, 6-7 weeks ago, you're sitting out there watching them lose. Teresa, I would think you would be hard-pressed to think they could go into Foxborough and win and extend their season to Baltimore this week.
Well, the way they had been running the ball, the way this offense had been performing since Ryan Tannehill took over, honestly, I thought that they could go into. In fact, a week ago on a national show, I predicted the Titans would win because Derrick Henry running the ball. Right now, look at what he's done over the last 7 games. He's averaging 154 yards rushing. The Titans resting him in Week 16 against the New Orleans Saints helped that hamstring get over the hump, and you saw him unleashed in Foxborough on Saturday night. And, that old saw about how Bill Belichick will take away the one thing you do best. They could not stop Derrick Henry. 75% of the offense came from Derrick Henry, and he just mowed over them. Now, and here's the thing. That was a game, Ryan Tannehill's worst game since being, put into the starting lineup in mid-October. He had the interception, fumbled twice that they recovered. 8 passes completed, 1 touchdown, 72 yards. It was the fewest yards in a win in a playoff game since Ravens had 34 against the Patriots once upon a time. So, they did everything they needed to do to win in postseason, which is, the turnovers they had didn't hurt them. The defense kept them from hurting. But Derrick Henry and the way that offensive line just mowed people over. The Patriots were, remember everyone talking about how they had a chance to be a historic defense? They just ran right through them.
Well, this is an impressive thing, and I remember back when the Ravens beat Seattle back in October, you're like, yeah, it's nice. Then they beat New England, then they keep winning, then they go to L.A. and win 45-6. You start stacking impressive victories. I can look back at anything that the Titans did against the Broncos back when Marcus Mariota was a quarterback and sort of write that off and say, where have they been lately? And certainly going down to Houston and winning, going up to New England and winning. Hardest thing in the league to do is win 3 games in a row on the road, certainly against playoff teams and oust them. But there is something satisfying. I know that feeling about driving, away from that lighthouse in Foxborough toward the Providence Airport, knowing that you've ended their season. And there's some moxie that comes with that. I've got a man crush on Vrabel as a coach. I saw one of his first tasks back in Indianapolis almost 2 years ago when he addressed the media at the Combine, and I thought, well, there's a grown-up way of doing this. And there's a guy that's been around Belichick and been a player forever. He was a guy that I remember Marvin Lewis and Phil Savage wanted to draft around here back in 1997. He wound up going to the Steelers in the 3rd round in a draft that the Ravens were loaded in the 97 draft to really set up their 0-1 Super Bowl. And here he is 20 years later, an emerging coach. And an emerging coach that I don't know anybody's got a bad word for. And certainly whatever success is sort of tied to him and his decision-making at this point.
Well, absolutely. When the Titans missed the playoffs last year, they were playing in the final game of the regular season, hosting the Colts with a chance. The winner went to the playoffs, and the Colts got a win in Houston the next week. But unfortunately, they didn't have Marcus Mariota, and you saw, injuries took a toll. And what the Titans did this offseason, they went out. One thing not to overnotice, Adam Humphries was the guy the Patriots tried to sign in free agency, a wide receiver from Tampa Bay, and the Titans outbid the Patriots for that. So even though he didn't play on Saturday, missed his 5th straight game because of an injury, the thing is, at least he wasn't suited up in a Patriots uniform catching passes from Tom Brady. They also drafted A.J. Brown, a guy that the Patriots could have drafted when they took N'Keal Harry, and instead they passed him up and a couple other top receivers, rookie receivers this year, and went with N'Keal Harry. And then they brought in Roger Saffold to bulk up this offense. And that was all designed to help Marcus Mariota, blossom in his 5th and final year under contract. getting paid $20.9 million. But they also went out and to upgrade that backup position, the one thing they learned last year in that finale was you got to have a backup who can come in and win games. And in mid-October, they had been mired, 7-1 touchdown in a 10-quarter period. And, they turned it over to Ryan Tannehill in the third quarter of the loss in Denver. And then, a couple days later, it's like, okay, we're turning it over. What were they looking for? A spark. They got way more than a spark. This offense, in the time that Tannehill was starting through the rest of the season, averaged 30.4 points a game. That was second in the league to some team named Baltimore. So they can put up points in a bunch. And he's just, they traded away a couple draft picks to get him, and Miami is picking up $5 million of his salary. He's counting $18.4 million against the Miami cap this year. This is found money for the Titans, and they're rolling with it.
Well, and in Tannehill and making this decision for Vrabel to go to him, what's been the most impressive part of him? Because to be honest with you, I'm a Marcus Mariota fan. I was always a Marcus Mariota fan in that argument about Jameis Winston time and time again. I said, give me Mariota. I think he'll win first. I'm not shocked that the Titans are playing football in January with Mike Vrabel as their coach. I'm kind of shocked that they're doing it without Marcus Mariota because they felt very committed to him, and that's the biggest big boy decision you can make as a head coach, to be changing quarterbacks mid-fly, whether it's to save yourself, whether it's to spark the team, but to move off of a guy who's a franchise guy that all the fans have the jersey of and who seems like a right guy. And I just spent some time over on the Big Island out in the middle of the Pacific and to see how much they love football. I spent a week over in Hawaii, and I was kind of not shocked that they love football so much, but it was just sort of everywhere. And, Mariota's part of all of that. Yeah, this is a turn of events that I don't think any Titans fan or media member might have seen 3-4 months ago.
Well, there was a lot of national talk in August, that there was a quarterback competition. There wasn't. There really was never a competition. The Titans were all in on trying to make Marcus Mariota work, and that's what you mentioned that decision by Vrabel. I'm pretty betting that it was an organizational decision with John Robinson as well. But they all had to make the change and go from Mariota to Tannehill. And, Tannehill had good numbers in Miami. It's just that, if you look at Miami, remember what we were all talking about in September, the Miami Tankathon was on. Tannehill looks like he was lucky to get away from that, and he comes to an organization that this was set up for this franchise to get to the playoffs this year, to try to do something. They fired Mike Mularkey after the playoff loss in New England 2 years ago because they wanted more. They thought they wanted to compete for championships. They wanted to create their Titan version of the Patriot way. And yes, they had a GM who got his start in the NFL, GM John Robinson, with the Patriots as a scout. Mike Vrabel, 3 Super Bowl rings with that franchise. And then he goes to New England on Saturday night and outduels Belichick with one of the tricks of the trade that Belichick had used back in October against the Jets, trying to chew up clock using timeouts and penalties and things like that. It was amazing. So, and watching what Mike Vrabel, he's gotten criticized heavily this year for some of the decisions he's made in games, not challenging this, challenging that. Why did you punt here? But, it looks like he's also a coach. This is the guy that people thought was going to be that next hot coach. Why? Because of the roots. Belichick played for him. Coached at Ohio State as an assistant, coached under Bill O'Brien at Houston. So, the Titans jumped on him, made him their coach. That was hired 5 days after the Titans fired Mike Mularkey. They only interviewed 3 people. Mike Vrabel was one. Matt LaFleur, who's now the Packers coach and enjoying a bye-up with the Packers, was one of the other 2. So, but it feels like Mike Vrabel, this is the situation, this is the time of year that seems to fit him best. This is why they hired him, that postseason experience, knowing how to win rings, even if he'd never done it before as a head coach. And that's what they put their money on. And watching the results on that first playoff debut as a coach, it's kind of tough to disagree with that decision at this point.
You can find Teresa Walker out on our website at WNST.net. You can also find her on Twitter at Teresa M. Walker, AP Pro Football writer and 2-time Tennessee Sports Writer of the Year, covering all things down there in the Music City. And has this sort of stopped the Predators for a little while? I don't know that the Titans were stopping traffic a month or 2 ago as a contender or a heartbeat away from an AFC Championship game, and certainly with the other side of this is, watching this Houston-Kansas City thing on the other side. But for them to be the survivor into the Final Four of all of this, I've always thought that place would explode if the Titans were ever had a Tom Brady type of thing, or if they had ever gotten their hands on Peyton Manning. I feel like they really would have dominated things. The Predators have sort of dominated the conversation there in a lot of ways, aside from country music and all the beer drinking and all the good fun that we always have. By the way, we play you guys down there next year, so that's a nice little trip for us. But the thoughts about the big picture of what this would mean if the Titans were to come in and slay Lamar Jackson as a double-digit dog.
Well, let's put it this way. I've been reading that stores are having suddenly a hard time stocking up on Titans jerseys. And you know how it is. When you win, people get on board. And the Predators right now, they're slumping. They're kind of struggling. And, right now as it sits, they're out of the playoff picture. There's a lot of people that would like to see Peter Laviolette fired, something to shake up the franchise. Because, remember, they signed Matt Duchene in July after trading away P.K. Subban. Why? To help them get to the Stanley Cup. Now they're not even in the playoff picture. Here come the Titans, 8-3 now with Ryan Tannehill as their starter, in the postseason, having just knocked off the Patriots, possibly helping put the nail in the coffin of that dynasty. So people are paying attention.
And Rocky Top's not what it was. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
20 years ago when Eddie George was running around, they couldn't get enough. And you know this. I mean, you were covering it forever. They couldn't get enough attention there because it was all about the Volunteers everywhere all the time. I feel like that's changed a little bit as Nashville's changed a little bit and has become its own place. Teresa, I will be calling you. I promise you. Write this down. You will hear from me in the next 18 months talking about your community stealing our baseball team, because that's a reality of what Nashville has become, searching for this sort of sports identity of its own, I think. And I've always felt like the Titans are going to own it eventually. They're just going to need to be better than they've been the last 15 years on the field and have stars to sell. I thought Mariota was going to be that guy. I really did.
Well, we all did, but we're seeing with him and what we've seen with so many other quarterbacks. When you have coaching changeovers, Vrabel's his third different coach, 4 different offensive coordinators, 5 different play callers, the broken ankle on Christmas Eve, his second season, maybe his third. It just, all those injuries seem to have taken a toll. And watching him, getting a chance to watch Ryan Tannehill, he said when he was benched this wouldn't be the end of his career. So, he'll be a free agent in March. Hope he goes to a team and a coach that, will take advantage of his skills and look forward to seeing him come forward. But, right now this team is hot. You mentioned the Vols. 1998, when this team was just playing its first season in Nashville, after playing a year in Memphis, Vols won the national championship in football that year. It was all orange and white across the state. And then the Titans went to the Super Bowl after the 98-99 season, the Music City Miracle. Everyone got onto that board. But, for the last decade or so, yes, this is their second wild card win in 3 years. But, other than that, they're not that far removed from going 5-27 over 2 seasons and, picking second and earning the number 1 pick overall. So there's still a lot of people who've been kind of on that fence saying, do we buy into the Titans? Do we go? Some people jumped off of that fence on Saturday night. They go into Baltimore on Saturday and play their way into the AFC Championship game. This city's going to go from, gold and blue. It's going to be two-tone blue, and it's going to go nuts.
Well, it'd still make Barry Trotz the mayor, I think, before it's all over with.
Oh, yeah.
That's our hockey conversation for another day. But I have a closet full of Predator stuff over there that Trotzy gave me over the first 15 years there. So we've had our fun. All right, so stopping Lamar Jackson. I mean, Teresa, you've watched football a long time. You cover the SEC. We talk about, Derrick Henry running people over at Alabama a couple years ago. I thought that was kind of otherworldly. I thought he was a really special college football player in that way. And then we see Lamar Jackson do this, I don't want to say against all odds, but certainly 31 teams had a chance to draft him and change their whole organization and build the whole thing around him and try to keep him upright and healthy and hope that the rules, aid and assist that, although they didn't for Carson Wentz the other night in Philadelphia, which is the cautionary tale for all of us. But, Teresa, I'm flying to Miami on Thursday and Friday to scout Super Bowl locations. We are a double-digit favorite. We are the host team. We are the favorite to go to the Super Bowl. Boy, that's a lot on a kid that's never won a playoff game. That's just the math. Lamar Jackson's never won a playoff game, and we're making plans for Miami. This is heady stuff, but we've never seen a player like this.
He's amazing. I watched him in college at Louisville, and the only question I had was, would an NFL team be willing to, to adapt to his skills? And you mentioned all the teams that passed him up. Ravens passed him up too. They had an earlier chance they could have drafted him. But all credit to them to taking him. But more importantly, changing to adapt to him. The NFL, for how many decades was there the stereotype as a quarterback had to be so tall? Drew Brees and those guys were the exceptions, not the rules.
Well, my man Flutie too. I got to throw him in there.
Exactly. I was trying to think of Flutie's name. So it's like you had to. It was like the right. You had to be this tall to ride the NFL ride as an NFL quarterback, and and you had to be a pocket passer. And that started breaking down, but to take advantage of all his skills, and he's like watching a live video game, and it's so much fun to watch him play. But but you mentioned that pressure. It'll be 19 days between games for Lamar Jackson with the bye and them resting him in the finale. So having seen up close and personal 2000, 2008, the Titans were the AFC's number one seed, had that bye. 2008, they'd won 10 straight games to open the season. Sometimes rust, expectations, there's a reason we play the games, and it's because things we watch, the ratings were up this year for the NFL. Why? Because what happens on the field doesn't always go according to chalk.
Well, and I felt that nervousness on Saturday in both the games. When Josh Allen's playing hot potato with the football, when nothing's going right for Deshaun White, I felt that, oh, God, I hope this isn't me next Saturday night. With, Miami plans and, all of these ideas and visions of purple sugar plums and a parade here in Baltimore. Teresa Walker is our guest. You can follow her out on the AP as well as at WNST.net. All of her work appears with us. Teresa M. Walker, the way to find her. How many years for you? I don't want to date you too much, but I know you've been doing this a long, long time. And when you speak of Eddie George and Ray Lewis, that comes from firsthand experience in your case.
Absolutely. I've covered the Titans since they moved to the state of Tennessee in July of 1997. So yeah. I saw that. And I covered those games. I was in the press box. I was in the press box in Baltimore for that wild card game.
But were you in the locker room when Billick yelled about the Banshee and the spear and finding the SOB? I was.
I was not. So
I was the one he was looking at. That was the other side. Hey, you talk about days that you don't forget. You don't forget that game. And I was at the Music City Miracle too, by the way. But there were some legendary football games held down there on the Cumberland.
Oh, absolutely. The joke from 2000 playoff game was that when Ray Lewis took that ball away from Eddie George, he took his soul. And in that wild card game in Baltimore, when Eddie, it hurts the shoulder, gets it braced up, and then just mowed over Ray in the second half, that he got his soul back. These have just been battles for the ages between these franchises, and now it's time for the next generation to pick up and move forward.
All right, we still got Justin Tucker to hit a field goal if we need. I'm not going to bring up Al Del Greco any more than I just did, but, we lost in 2003. Zeus jumped in 15 yards. In 2008, Stover came down, won a big game. We had a big party down in your town. But Nashville has really grown up, so we always love coming down there and having a good time, getting together with you guys. And a lot at stake on Saturday night, big-time football under the bright purple lights, not the ones I'm wearing around my neck right now. Teresa, always great to visit with you. I wish we still were in the same division. Everybody here feels that way.
Well, I'm sure the teams don't mind being in separate divisions. They probably see too much of each other as it is. I think Marcus Mariota is still, when he sees Ravens on the schedule this week, his kidneys are probably hurting from the last season when he got sacked 11 times. So, but yes, when these teams meet, it's never boring.
Appreciate you. Always great to visit with you. Keep up the great work. We'll keep platforming it at WNST.net through our AP partnership. Teresa, appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
There she goes, Teresa M. Walker. The way to find her out on Twitter. You can find me out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day. I wear my Baltimore Positive sweatshirt as well. Don Moeller and I catching up with Martin O'Malley and Brian Frosch next week. TJ Smith coming your way. The incomparable Wes Moore as well to start Baltimore Positive here in 2020. I am positively headed to South Florida later on in the week to select party locations, get hotels lined up to make sure that you have the confidence you need to have if you're going with us to South Florida if the Ravens can get these 2 victories under their belt. But we're not counting the chickens before they hatch or the Titans before they melt. We'll be talking about it with all sorts of friends down in the Music City all week long. You can find it all out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault. You can email me anytime, anywhere, nasty@WNST.net if you want on the Miami list as well. Sam Cooke joining us at Greenmount Station on Tuesday night in Hampstead. You also hear that out in the buyatoyota.com. I'm really looking forward. I love Sam Cooke, and I don't get to have long-form conversations with such a veteran guy, and hearing about his hometown in Nebraska, and a very humble guy, Sam Cooke, part of the Wolfpack. Ooh, we couldn't get Tucker, so I'm bringing Sam Cooke. We're going to be up at Greenmount Station on Tuesday night. Come on out. We'll swap for the Bone Marrow Registry and give some love and some crab cakes as well. I am Nestor. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. We are WNST.net AM 1570 and WNST Taos in Baltimore as I'm rocking my old school Sports First pin and my Baltimore Positive sweatshirt and my Curio Wellness hat. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.